Okay, let's keep reading Aussie Bites. Grommet saves the world. We're up to chapter 6.
It's actually Aussie Chomps.
Oh, Aussie Chomps, that's right. Chapter 6. Don't panic. He hasn't gone far. In fact, if he had wanted to, he could have reached up and taken his t-shirt out of my hand because the cherry picker had arrived just in time. Just in time for me too. All that weight had been too much for the girl's belt. Leather or no leather, it snapped, and without warning, I fell headfirst into the fiberglass bucket. Luckily, my fall was broken by the body of the boy, who was curled up in a whimpering ball on the floor. The bucket was quickly lowered to the ground, lowered to ground level, so we could stagger out. Some people kiss the ground after they have a scare like that. I wanted to hug it tenderly and discuss a long-term relationship. The bucket didn't stay down for long. A man in orange overalls with emergency sewn across the back jumped in, and off he went to rescue the other passengers. "You were amazing, a hero. You saved this boy's life," a man said. The other boy was led away shaking, but I had to stay while this man told me how absolutely fantastic I was. I could handle that. Normally, people tell me how awful I am. But I knew this guy. He was the one who'd stormed out of the manager's office while I was waiting to go in. He had been too angry that day to see anyone else, so I was certain he didn't recognize me. "My name's Ben Toppler," he said, shaking my... Oops, what is it? Shaking my hand. "I'm the assistant manager of Scream World. Saw the whole thing. You were very brave to get out of your seat like that." I tried to look embarrassed. "I was terrified, and we were lucky the crane turned up so quickly," I said, trying to sound less like a hero. But now others were crowding around. "What happened? Why did the ride stop like that?" "It's like we're jinxed," Mr. Toppler told them. "Doesn't seem very safe," said a woman with 2 kids at her side. "We're doing our best," he assured her, but she wasn't convinced, and I saw her lead her family towards the exit. Mr. Toppler turned back to me. "Now, young man, you are the hero of the hour. The television people will want to interview you, and the newspapers. Your face will be all over the place. A household name. You'll be famous." There was a commotion as 2 crying girls were reunited with their mother. This gave me a moment to think. Famous, a hero, my name in the newspapers and my face on TV. Mum and Dad would want to know what I was doing at Scream World when I told them I was going to be at Josh Carter's place. Worst of all, my cover would be blown. I couldn't sneak around Scream World looking for saboteurs unnoticed if every 10 metres someone pointed a finger at me and said, hey, there's that boy hero. I might as well wear a Superman suit. I still wanted to help Mrs. Walters. I liked her. I liked the way she spoke about Scream World. It meant a lot to her. This was a challenge, and, as I've said already, I'm a sucker for a challenge. While Ben Toppler turned away to sympathise with the girls and their mother, I slipped quietly into the crowd. I had a suspect for the lethal Looper accident. It was time I let Max Fegan know about it, so a few hours later, when the commotion had died down, I climbed the stairs that led to the security office. A guy even uglier than Max opened the door. "You must be lost, mate. There's no rides up here. I have to speak to Max Fegan." "Yeah, and why would he want to speak to you?" If I had my undercover agent's badge, I could flash it, and this man would suddenly grovel at my feet in an apology. That was a fantasy, though, I reminded myself. "He's my Uncle Max," I lied. It was enough to get inside. The place was amazing. There were a couple of tiny offices, but the first thing that caught my eye was a storeroom with the door open. Inside there were chains and handcuffs and canisters of tear gas, riot shields and helmets. Security guards must have a lot of fun. But I soon forgot about that storeroom when I saw the television monitors. There were 7 of them in a long row, and in front of them was a console with dials and knobs and switches. Max Fegan sat before this console, stabbing at buttons with his left hand while he moved a joystick around with his right. He could see every bit of Scream World through these monitors. I was never going to be happy with an ordinary video game like after this. I guess my face showed my excitement, and it was this excitement that worried Max. He still thought of me as the enemy, and he didn't think it was such a good idea to show the enemy his best weapons. "What did you bring him in here for?" "He said you're his uncle." Uncle, Max shoved me away from the console into his office. I know what happened to the lethal looper, I told him. He didn't believe me, but when I insisted, he came with me to look at the fuse box. There were the 3 switches. Each looked locked into position by the bar just as before, except that these weren't the way I had seen them only a couple of hours ago. The 3rd switch was turned on now, the same as the first 2. But he tampered with it, I'm certain. Who tampered with it? The lion tamer, I said in a hurry. It shouldn't have surprised me when Max looked a bit confused. Obviously, I was confused myself. I mean, the guy who takes care of the Panthers. Ted LaRousse, you've got to be joking. He grabbed me by the front of my shirt. The high hedge kept us hidden from view so he could threaten me all he liked. Now tell me the truth, you little bag of bones. Did you actually see him with your own eyes? Did you see him standing at this box tampering with the switches? Well, actually I hadn't. I'd followed him from the Panther Prowl. I'd lost him. I'd seen a figure disappearing through the hedge, but I couldn't say who it was. I admitted all this to Max Fegan, and he let me go. That's better. If you want me to take you seriously, then find some evidence. I wasn't going to give up on Mr. LaRousse, though, and later that day I found out something that made me even more suspicious. Mrs. Walters had been to inspect the lethal looper. On the way back to her office, she spotted me and called me over. How are things going? Do you know anything about today's accident? I shook my head, but she gave me $5 to pig out anyway. Out of curiosity, I asked her about Mr. LaRousse. He's very good with the big cats, but he keeps to himself most of the time. Poor man. I don't know him very well. You'd do better to ask Max Fegan. He and Ted LaRousse are good friends. Oh no. Chapter 7. What is the greatest danger to the undercover agent? Guns, knives, bombs. For James Bond, those might be a problem, but I haven't seen any of those around Screamworld. Some spies might give themselves away by saying too much, and of course, you could always be double-crossed by someone who knew you were an undercover agent, someone like Max Fegan. But I found out the greatest danger is your friends. They know your face, they can pick you out in a crowd, draw attention to you because they don't know how important it is to go unnoticed. My friends turned up on the 3rd day. I was hanging out around the Panther Prowl, watching for Mr. LaRousse, and because I'm not very good at this job yet, I wasn't watching for anyone else. Grommet! It was Josh Carter. I spun round quickly, and there was Ganga Williams and Dave Beck. There was a 4th kid with them, but I hadn't seen him before. We didn't know you were coming here today, Josh continued. He had the loudest voice. It felt like the entire world had turned to look at us. Who's this? I asked, nodding towards the new boy. Toby. Great name, isn't it? With a name like that, we had to beat him up or let him join. Didn't we, Tobes? Tobe looked more in favour of the second option. He's on probation, said Ganger. I knew what that meant. Trouble for me. It's time Toby proved himself, fellas? This'll be a good start. He kicked violently at the vending machine beside him. Maybe we'll get Tobes to break it open for us, and he gave the machine another kick with his size 8 Nikes. Not now, fellas, I thought to myself. I'm busy. I glanced around, and sure enough, half a dozen faces had turned to look at us. On top of that, one of the security cameras was pointing straight at us. Josh and the boys could wave hello to Max Fegan if they wanted to. It was just what he needed to make me look bad in front of Mrs. Walters. He was probably recording this whole meeting. Come on, Grommet, you might as well hang with us now. I wasn't going to see much around the Panther Prowl with this cheer squad making everyone stare at us, and it would look suspicious if I didn't join them. After 5 minutes of walking, we reached the centre of Screamworld, a big square of grass with fountains and ponds and park benches where families came to eat their lunch. Here, Josh spotted a way to initiate poor Toby. You see that woman over there, the one with the 3 kids? She's left her handbag on the pram while she feeds them. Steal it. Toby looked like he'd rather wrestle an anaconda. Don't do it, I said to Toby. What's the matter with you, Grommet? Said Josh. Ganger and Dave just looked just as surprised. You're going soft, said Ganger. I should have told them all about the cameras. There were 2 in this area of the park, and both of them were trained on our little group. But if I told them that, it was going to give away secrets. I stayed where I was, but Josh, Ganger and Dave made it easier for their new recruit. They moved off a little way and started to toss an empty Coke bottle around in a game of touch footy. It worked. The woman kept an eye on them in case their boisterous game came too close to her children. Toby was in like a flash and took the handbag. Oh, great. He should have smiled for the cameras, me too for that matter, because I was dressed the same as them and I was hanging around with them. It would look like I was part of it. Max had me on toast. I knew he would be on his way here right now to nab me in person. The other three had joined Toby by now, hurrying down one of the wide streets and led away from the square. I ran after them and snatched back the handbag. "What are you doing, Grommet?" Ganger snapped angrily. "Yeah, give it back." Josh was standing shoulder to shoulder with Dave, but I didn't hang around waiting for them to start a fight. They followed as I headed back the way we'd came. By then they could guess where I was going. This made them stop in their tracks. Up ahead I could see the lady and her kids. She had just realised her handbag was missing, but she couldn't race off looking for it and leave those three alone. Excuse me, I called when I was only a metre or two away. I stopped. "You dropped this, I think." She came forward and took it from me, my outstretched hand, then stepped back quickly. "How did you know it was mine?" "Good point. I saw it fall off your pram. But I've been here for 10 minutes. Why did it take you so long? Come on, lady, I thought. Just be grateful you've got your handbag back." She opened it and quickly found her purse. The notes and coins were all there, so she relaxed a little. "I suppose I should thank you," she said, but she didn't. I walked off before she asked me any more questions I couldn't answer. If I avoided my friends, they would only follow me, so I walked straight at them. With the woman still watching, they fell into step with me until we were around the corner. "Have you turned into a goody two-shoes now?" said Josh with a sneer. "Why'd you have to give the handbag back like that? We weren't really going to steal anything from it. It was just a test for Toby." It went on like that for about a minute, with Dave and Ganger having a go at me as well. They made it pretty clear I was out of the group. I was upset. These guys were my friends. We tortured teachers together, we played handball every lunch hour, and then we went home to each other's fridges. Who was I going to muck around with now? When Josh and the rest were finished unloading their disgust, they took off. It wouldn't be easy for me now. I looked around, and yes, there was Max Fegan waiting for me, just as I knew he would be. I felt like holding up my hands for the handcuffs like they do on TV. "I was watching," he said. "Yeah, I know, the cameras. I saw what you did." I shrugged. If I wanted to say I'd stolen the handbag in the first place, I wasn't going to squeal. If he wanted to say I'd stolen the handbag in the first place, I wasn't going to squeal. Mrs. Walters wouldn't believe me anyway. "I heard what your mate said to you as well. Pretty rough. He certainly didn't look like he was about to arrest me." "Maybe you're not the kid I thought you were. I know how it feels to have mates like that, you know." I must have looked at him surprised. "Oh, I was a cop once, sure, but before that I wasn't exactly an altar boy. I know guts when I see it. Come on, we've both got work to do. There's a bloke somewhere here who's trying to sabotage the place, and we have to find him."